Hello everyone, it's Fred again from Notes of a Nomad. Today I'm going to try and do something a little bit differently. I have done a presentation on Elon Musk. It was long. I'm going to try and give you a brief overview of Elon Musk's life and a little bit about what we can learn from him. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. And Elon was born in 1971 in Pretoria, Transvaal, South Africa. My daughter, I have a daughter who was also born in Transvaal, South Africa, not far from Pretoria, also in 1971. Now, his mother was Canadian. She was born in Saskatchewan. She was a model and dietitian, very successful lady. His father was a South African engineer, pilot, property developer, etc. Elon was very bright when he was young. This is Elon on this part of the screen, and that's his younger brother, Kimball. And he started to read at a very young age, and he was always found with a book, and he has reputedly a photographic memory. And his younger brother, Kimball, was born the year after him, and he has a younger sister, Tosca, was born in 1974. When he was 9 years old, his parents divorced, and he lived, I think, on and off with his mother and father. As such, he moved around quite a bit from the different schools. When he was 10 years old, one of his first passions was computing and video games. He learned computer programming from a manual, became a very good computer programmer. And when he was 12 years old in 1983, he made his first business venture. He sold a computer game called Blastar for approximately $500. He also because he's a geek and maybe he has some Asperger's, he's a bit awkward, and he was bullied. And in fact, he was very badly bullied. One time he ended up in hospital being thrown down a flight of stairs at one of the schools. He went to a variety of schools. He also went to schools in the area where my children went to school. He went to Bryanston High School in Sandton, and my children went to Sandton High School in Sandton. When he was 18 or 19, 18, he left South Africa, came to Canada because his mother was born in Canada. He get a Canadian passport. He ended up in Saskatchewan with some second cousins, and he worked on farms for that year. And also he had the toughest job he said he ever had was in a lumber mill in Vancouver, where he had to put on a hazmat suit, climb into the boiler and clean out the boiler. It was a job no one else wanted. There he was showing some of his persistence. A year later, in 1990, when he was 19, he entered Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. And 2 years later, in 1992, he was transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, where when he was 24 in 1995, he graduated with 2 degrees, one in Bachelor of Arts in Economics and a Bachelor of Science in Physics. Also, at the age of 24 that year, he was entered into the PhD program in material science in Stanford University, where he lasted the whole of 2 days, where he decided he wasn't going to easily get a job. No one wanted to employ him. He was a bit awkward. He was very shy. So he started his own company. And at the age of 24, he started a company called Zip2 with his brother and another fellow, and they developed something like the Yellow Pages, which in 1995 online was unusual. And that company, 2 years later, when he was 27, was bought by, Zip2 was bought by Compaq Computers for $307 million, and Elon received $22 million. So by the time he was 27, he was a millionaire with that $22 million. That year, 1999, he then started another company, which was called XCOM. and it was a financial service online email payment company. It was merged with another company that ultimately became PayPal. And in 2002, the company PayPal was acquired by eBay for 1.5 billion in stock. And Elon, being the largest shareholder, walked away with $175 million. So now he's doing even better. The year before that, he had found another passion, and that was space exploration. He became involved with a nonprofit, Mars Society, and he was inspired to place a growth chamber for plants on Mars. And in October of 2001, he traveled to Russia to see if he could buy a refurbished intercontinental ballistic missile. And the Russians discounted him, said, no, this guy doesn't know, this youngster, what's he know? He knows nothing. So that I think they chased him away. But the following year, in 2002, after getting his $170 million, he went back to Russia to try and buy more than one rocket. And he was once again couldn't come to an agreement. They wanted $8 million for one rocket. He thought that's too much. So he came back to North America and started SpaceX. And that was in 2002. So he used $100 million of his own fortune, and he became the chief executive officer and chief engineer of SpaceX. In 2006, they launched their first rocket. It was a failure. They launched another two, which failed. But in 2008, they launched their fourth rocket, and that's when he was now 37, and Falcon 1 went into orbit, and they received contract from NASA for additional flights to the International Space Station. Also, I'm talking about SpaceX. They started in 2015 development of Starlink, which provides satellite internet access around the world. And they put their first satellites up for that in 2019. And it's going to take them probably a decade to get all the satellites up. It'll cost about $10 billion. And the most recent accomplishment with SpaceX was the first crewed flight that docked to the International Space Station in 2020. So let's get back to where he really made his money, and that was in that was PayPal, that was SpaceX, and now Tesla. Now with Tesla, what he did was in 2004, when he was 33, he invested $6.5 million in Tesla. He didn't take, he was CEO because he was the largest investor, but he didn't take active involvement with that other than some design of the Roadster. But in 2008, 4 years later, when he was 37, there was financial crisis and things going on and some conflicts. He assumed leadership of Tesla, and they produced 2,500 Roadsters, which was their first product that they produced. Then in 2012, they started delivering the Tesla Model S. And by 2021, which was last year, at the age of 49, Elon became the richest man in the world, with being worth over $200 billion. And he was the first person actually to be, at one time, to be worth over $300 billion. And this is mainly in Tesla shares. In October of 2021, Tesla was one of the 6th company, I think, in North America to be worth $1 trillion. So he has been making now an impact on the automotive industry. The last person to do that was Henry Ford when he started the Model T factory over 100 years ago. He is having impact with his factories in China, in Austin, Texas, and now, and also in Germany. And they produced about almost 1 million vehicles last year, and they're going to do a lot more with the other factories that have just opened up. Maybe some people say close to 2 million vehicles this year. So what lessons can we learn from Elon Musk? Well, the first one is find something you're interested in. He's in space and changing, well, the automotive industry in the world. Those are two of his passions. He has others, but that's the ones that he spent a lot of time on. So if you have something that's passionate, find something, put a little bit of fire in your belly and go for it. That makes life interesting and fun. The other thing that he does is solve problems. Some of the things that he has done, for example, in Australia, there was a challenge with electric power. And in 2017, in 100 days, he built the world's largest lithium-ion battery farm in South Australia. And that is reputedly save over $116 million in energy costs. So those are the problems. Also with Starlink, he has allowed, when it was still under last year, I think it was the beginning of last year, Starlink was utilized to give internet access to a remote community of First Nations in Northern Ontario. This 3,000 Indigenous community had to fly in and fly out, but now they have access to education. The children don't have to go to high school. They can stay and get their education, healthcare, contact their friends and relatives outside of that. So solve problems. He solved a lot more problems than we know about. And persistence. He worked in that lumber mill in Canada. That was the toughest job. No one else wanted to do it, but he did that. With SpaceX, they had those failures. They had burned through almost his $100 million, but he persisted and they were successful and are continuing to be successful. And the manufacturing of Tesla, he slept in the factory for 3 years to sort out the problems. So he has taught us that if you find something you're passionate about and you solve problems and you persist, you can have an impact on the world. So Elon Musk was Time Magazine's Person of the Year, and he's received awards. And one of the recent awards was for breakthrough in design, in engineering, manufacturing, operation of reusable launch vehicles, and sustainable transportation and energy systems. So those are a synopsis of what Elon Musk's life has and some of the lessons we could learn from him. So with that, I'll say au revoir, adios, wishing you, your family, and friends lots of love and laughter. Bye for now, from Fred at Notes of a Nomad.